Hey friends, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a photographer and educator on a mission to help you find your passion, power, and purpose through entrepreneurship. So let's jump right into today's episode because this girl means business. Hey guys, welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. Thank you so much for being here this week. I hope that you are enjoying your week, and I am so grateful to have you here listening with me. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to remind you about the Instagram Stories Challenge that I have going on this week. If you want to go back and listen to episode 80, where we talked about Instagram stories, and I mentioned that we were going to be starting an Instagram Stories Challenge this week. So if you head over to Girl Means Business on Instagram, each day I am posting a quick little video with a fun tip or tutorial, a little trick that you can try, something creative to boost engagement in your Instagram stories. Try it out yourself, post to your Instagram stories, and tag at Girl Means Business. I'm choosing one winner each day to receive access to the Inbox Insiders program. And then at the end of the week, one lucky winner will get a 1-year pass to Business Builders membership program. So head over to Girl Means Business on Instagram, follow along, try out all the really cool fun tips we're doing over there, and tag me in those stories. All right, guys, I am super excited for today's interview. I am chatting with Brenda Lamelli. She is a certified life and weight loss coach, a certified holistic nutritionist, and the creator of the Last 10 system. She is also the host of the Losing Last 10 Pounds podcast. And today we're talking all about mental health in your business. We are both moms with young children, and we have a lot of conversations around just the mental health aspect of being a working mom, whether you are running a business, working a 9-to-5, or trying to do all of the above while raising a family. It can take a really large toll on your mental health. So we're diving into all of that today with some tips and some ideas on how we can really make sure that we are keeping our mental health in check. I cannot wait for you to listen. So let's go ahead and jump into my conversation with Brenda. All right, guys, I am here with Brenda Lamelli. Hi, Brenda. How are you?
Hi, Kendra. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm doing great.
Well, thanks for joining us. We started off with some technical difficulties, but we're running smoothly now, and I can't wait to get into our conversation. So thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you have a little one at home, so thank you for taking a break from being mom for a little while to chat with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I took her to her grandparents.
Oh.
So I actually, because I know we're going to be talking about this, I took her to her grandparents and they're so happy to have her. And then later, after this interview, I have a massage therapist coming over and I'm so excited.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I've had a massage gift certificate sitting on my nightstand since October, because my husband got it for me for my birthday. And I kept saying I had 2 days a week when both my kids were in school, because my youngest one's in like a Mother's Day out Tuesday, Thursday. And every week I was like, okay, I'm going to go this week. I'm going to go this week while they're both in school. And then something would come up and I would always be like, oh, okay, I'll put it off. And so it's just sitting on my nightstand, just waiting for me to use it. I need to get that out and make an appointment.
Well, there was a pandemic in the midst. So
just that little thing.
Yeah, just that.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into too much conversation, let's introduce you. Let's talk a little bit about, share with us who you are, what you do, a little bit about your backstory for us.
Yeah, so I am a master life coach, certified master life coach. I'm also a certified holistic nutritionist. And what I do in my work, I have created a program called The Last 10 Pounds. And really, in my program, what I do is I teach my clients, all our women that have been struggling with their weight for a lifetime. And by the way, that used to be me. I struggled with my weight for at least a couple decades. At my heaviest, I weighed up to 197 pounds. And I know if you see me now, you would never believe that. Yeah. That's what people tell me. But for me, my goal is to help my clients lose the weight, but it goes way beyond that. Really, it's about equipping them. I actually think I have the perfect combo. I have the nutrition background, but what's way more important than even that is the mindset piece. And that I think is so relevant to business as well. You can have no strategies and no things. But when you don't have the mindset that will get you to your goal, and to do it in a way where you don't like kill yourself and burn yourself out and hate your life, like mindset is always important, I think, for achieving any kind of results you want to create. So, that's basically what I do. I help my clients create results they love in that part of their life. And I really feel the same tools that I teach as they apply to those personal goals that my clients have are literally the same tools I use in my own business. I really think of it as having the tools, the mindset tools, and the emotional management tools to create the life and the results that we want. So it all goes together. But and in a nutshell, that's what else can I tell you? I live in Phoenix. Before I started, I've been doing my own business for 3 going on 4 years now. I have a daughter. She's 14 months old. Her name's Gianna. So you could say I'm a fairly new mom. I'm like a year in.
Yeah, it's pretty new. A lot to come.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's me in a nutshell, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. That's so cool. So I wanted to talk to you today because I think, I've had a couple conversations on the podcast and just also in my personal life with people who are health and wellness or fitness. And, I think it's such an important part of our lives. And it's something that people tend to separate. They think like, okay, well, I'm either working on my business, I'm working on my family, or I'm working on my health. And it's not very often that all those things kind of merge together to make one sort of harmonious balance.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I know that this podcast is a business podcast, but I think that there's so much that is tied to your health and your mental wellness and your physical wellness, and all those things kind of combined create an atmosphere for you to be successful in other aspects of your life. And so that's why I wanted to kind of have a conversation with you about, just being able to not necessarily compartmentalize it, but be able for all of it to work well together.
Yeah. And I think that's so true what you just said. And it really is so important. In fact, I think as women, like what we do, and as women, as moms and entrepreneurs, like if you were to separate all of those into buckets, here's the problem. What most women do is put themselves and their personal well-being and health last. It's like, first my kids, then my business, because your business is basically your baby. I get it.
Yeah.
Or maybe for some people it's first your business and your kids.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, exactly. But most of the time it's me and my needs and me having a moment to recharge and me addressing like my emotions and how I'm feeling, or if I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, is like at the bottom of those 3 things. And that's just assuming that there's only those 3 things. There might be other things like volunteer and then there's that husband guy or, right? I mean, also everyone might not be married, but it might be like the person you're dating or the traveling you're doing,
or your friends or anybody,
Yeah, exactly. Like list all the things, and then my own needs and my emotional self-care, my mental self-care, my mindset's like at the bottom. Yeah. And I really, really believe it actually needs to work its way all the way to number 1. Like that needs to be number 1. And then I promise you, if you are making your emotional self-care number 1 and your mindset number 1, you will make more money. You will be able to show up to your life feeling more so like you can be the mom or whatever roles you have that you actually want to be, instead of like super burnt out and overwhelmed all the time. And I get it, because I just, not too long ago, I had a newborn, and it's definitely, there's a lot of responsibilities in and roles that women have in their life. But I really do think like taking care of your emotions and your mindset and your physical body, like it has to be number 1.
Yeah.
And everything else from there benefits from that. Like you will be richer.
In all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
And I think, that sounds so wonderful.
Yeah.
And, you hear all these people kind of paint this really great picture of what it looks like to put yourself first and to self-care and, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's going for walks or eating healthy or having a spa day or, hiring childcare. I think there's this really beautiful picture that's painted, but then the reality of it looks so much messier. I think about sort of this Instagram versus reality that goes around. And the Instagram part is like, oh yeah, I'm going to go get a pedicure. And my kids are perfectly playing in their playroom, or we have this great day together. And then I cook this home cooked meal and everything is great. When the reality is there's a pile of laundry that's not been done and your house hasn't been cleaned in 3 months. And, nobody's coming to visit anyway. Why clean the house, and your healthy meal was maybe prepackaged that you get from a meal delivery company
like
or whatever.
Tuna.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that I know for me, like we had this conversation a little bit before I hit record, and recently, I've had this moment where I was like, for 2 days in a row, I kind of put all work aside and I said, okay, I'm just going to focus on, being present with my family. The house is a disaster and I don't work well when my house is a mess. It just feels like when there's clutter around me, my head feels cluttered. And I was like, I need to get the house clean. I need to get laundry done. I need to kind of get caught up on some of these things. And we were doing this fun, like painting project in the girls' playroom and kind of redoing their playroom and all these things. And it felt really good to spend that time like in my home and with my family. But at the same time, I was like, well, I haven't checked email in 2 days. I haven't responded to emails in 2 days. I haven't posted to social media. I haven't done any of these things. And so then I go on the opposite end of the spectrum and I say, okay, I'm going to focus on my work completely for 2 days. And I lock myself in the office and I get all these things done and I feel really productive on my business. But then the house is a mess again. And we've eaten, fast food for 2 nights and the kids are banging on the door going, when are you going to come play with me? So I think that it's this really great idea to say, put your health and wellness first and your self-care first. But how do we actually do that without it being this backward forth pendulum swing that a lot of us do?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you've been listening to the Girl Means Business podcast for any amount of time, then you know my love of email marketing runs deep. Not only is it a great way to generate new leads, but it's one of the most effective methods for nurturing warm leads and turning them into sales. Now, over the years, I've tested several email platforms, and my favorite by far is Flowdesk. Not only do they make email marketing simple and easy, even for the technically challenged, but they have everything you need to create stunning emails, capture leads, make sales, and automate the entire process, giving you time back in your busy day. And the cherry on top is you're only charged one flat fee no matter how many subscribers you have. So while other platforms will increase your price when you go over your pricing tier limit, Flowdesk has no price increases or hidden fees. If you're ready to give Flowdesk a try, click the link below in the show notes to save 50% off your first year. Let Flowdesk help you design emails people will love. Click the link below and check it out. I have a feeling you're going to love it just as much as I do.
Yeah, your example is so perfect. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of dieting.
Yes.
This is what I used to do too. It's like I would go on this super quote unquote strict diet. Like, okay, I'm just going to eat chicken breast and broccoli, until I lose the weight or whatever. And it was like all or nothing. Here's the language I hear all the time. I'm either on track or I'm off track. I'm either really committed or I've fallen off the wagon. It's so black and white.
Yeah.
And that's what your example reminds me of. And here's what I want to offer instead. So for example, you described the day where you were with your kids and it felt really good, but you got nothing done in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went to the opposite side and you're like, I got a bunch of work done, but I don't know what the kids were doing or whatever, but that didn't really work either.
Right.
So neither of them really worked. And that's the thing about quote unquote dieting too. It's like neither really works, right? Like you're realistically not going to eat chicken breasts and broccoli for the rest of your life. Not most people, not me. That is not me.
Not even close now.
Yeah. But also not going to feel great if you're living off of French fries and ice cream and wine. You're going to feel like crap, but you're definitely not going to run a successful business feeling that way.
Right.
Again, at least not me. But here's what I have seen really works, not only in my business, but also in like the work that I do with my clients and that I did with myself. It's this. Okay, what I have right now isn't working. Like what I'm doing right now isn't working. And so it's a constant like taking assessment and tweaking and moving forward. And so you're constantly just like tweaking. If you can imagine like someone chiseling, is that the right word? Chiseling, like with a chisel, like making a sculpture.
Yeah.
Like they're just like chipping away at it little by little. That's really how I think is more beneficial to think of it, instead of black or white and like failure, like this is not working. It's okay. Let me take assessment. What am I doing right now? And then specifically these two questions, what is working and what isn't working? So for example, if my week always ends up with the laundry, like just, it is a messed up situation over there in the laundry. Okay, then what is working? And there might be nothing that's working. Well, maybe it is, right? Like maybe you're getting it into the washer, you're taking it out of the dryer, but then it ends up on top of the dryer. Like I get that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's working that you're putting it into the machines and taking it out. What's not working is that it's not making it to the closet. So then, okay, getting curious instead of getting judgmental or frustrated. What most women tend to do, both in their business and in any personal goals, is we get frustrated with ourselves and impatient with ourselves. And we basically are very critical. Like we, instead of being like our biggest number one fan and supporter, we're like, what's wrong with you? Why haven't you figured out this mom and business and CEO and all the things? It's more like, okay, here's what I got right now. And really taking a step back and looking at it from a non-judgmental place, just like, here's what it is. Okay, there's a pile in the laundry. Okay, we ate canned tuna. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't, but like this super non-judgmental, just take assessment, take inventory, what's working, what's not working. The things that are working, we keep them moving forward. And then the things that aren't working, we get curious. Like on the day that I played with the kids, why didn't I maybe carve out 30 minutes, right? That's just an example of a question. Mm-hmm. Like what might it look like to make this work better? And so it's more of a process of constantly reassessing and refining instead of black or white. Because the black or white, there's a lot of self-criticism there, and you get stuck in that and you get frustrated instead of always finding little solutions and moving forward. So
I love that what you said about get curious instead of judgmental or frustrated. I was writing that down.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to a podcast recently and I couldn't even tell you which one it was. I listened to so many, but they were talking about this similar idea of, and I think it was along the lines of like trying to lose weight and be healthy and eat better, like when they would go out places and things like that. And she said, one of the things that I'm trying to do is when I start feeling myself getting into that negative talk where I start telling myself, oh, you're a failure. Oh my God, I can't believe that you ate that. You're going to be so fat, or you're going to, feel so terrible later. And she said, instead, what I try to do is I try to turn that self-talk into me talking to a friend.
Yeah.
So, if my friend came to me and was like, oh my gosh, I've been doing so good. And then I went and ate chips and queso and tacos and I had 2 margaritas and I feel awful about it. Like, what would I say to that friend? I would say, well, you've been really good. You were with family. you were with friends, you were with whoever, you were enjoying yourself. Did you enjoy the food you were eating? Did it taste really good? Yeah. Okay. Then don't beat yourself up for it. But yet we can't do that to ourselves. Like we could easily tell our friends, hey, don't worry about the laundry. Like your kids aren't going to remember the pile of laundry on the couch. They're going to remember the fun that you were having with them while you were doing laundry together, or while it sat on the couch and y'all played outside. But yet we can't say that to ourselves for some reason. And so I remember hearing that and thinking like, that's what I need to do. I need to be better at talking to myself the way I would talk to my friends, and stop being so negative towards myself for things that really don't always matter usually. Usually like the laundry example, like I've had a load of laundry in the dryer for probably a week now. And it's towels. So it's things that like, it's not like things that we have plenty of other towels in our cabinet. So it's not like we're needing those. So I just keep hitting like respin, and eventually they'll get done. But I'm like, why am I being so hard on myself about a load of towels sitting in the dryer?
Yeah, exactly.
In the cabinet,
Yeah, I always tell my clients and myself, there literally is no upside to being harsh or critical or unkind. And then what I would add to what you were saying, Kendra, I love it. I often also offer for my clients that what would this process be like? And this applies to business goals, family goals, personal goals, weight loss, or whatever personal goals someone has. What would it be like if instead of being your biggest critic, you were literally your number one cheerleader, supporter, like in your corner? I imagine like a boxing ring, and like you are that person in your corner, getting you pumped up for your life, whatever you're doing in your life, because then you would show up so different to be a support. But what I would add along with that is also the willingness to take honest inventory. But it's so important to really make the distinction between honest and critical. So going with the towel example, right? You could be so kind to yourself and be like, yeah, that means nothing. Like, I'm an amazing mom and human and CEO, and there could be all the piles of laundry and it takes nothing away from that. However, is that working for me though? Do I like it? And the answer might be yes, but it also might be no. And that's the part of just like taking an honest, non-judgmental inventory. So I want to share my own personal example. I've literally had the same thing going on with the laundry and the dishes, right? I shared with you, I'm fairly a new mom.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, photographers, are you ready to make 2024 your best year yet? Growing a business is tough. You're following all the successful photographers and experts, soaking up their best advice and downloading all their free guides, trying to replicate their success only to come up lacking, blaming yourself when their methods don't work for you. But the truth is, it isn't you. Free content and one-size-fits-all courses can only get you so far. What you need is personalized help and guidance. But that can get expensive. Well, not anymore. I've created the perfect solution to get you personalized results for less than $2 a day. Introducing the Focus Photographer Lab, a one-of-a-kind coaching membership that gets you one-on-one results for a fraction of the cost of traditional coaching. Inside the lab, you'll find the 3 C's to success: classes, coaching, and community. With classes, you gain access to a treasure trove of pre-recorded trainings and invaluable resources. With coaching, you get monthly live trainings and Q&A sessions, along with my favorite part, the weekly one-on-one office hours, where we get to address your unique questions and challenges. And then there's the community, where you get to connect with an amazing group of talented female photographers who share your passion, supporting each other and inspiring each other to greatness. The best part is it doesn't come with an expensive one-on-one coaching price tag. You get all of that for just $47 a month. You can even try it for free for 14 days to make sure it's a good fit for you. And there is no contract and no obligation. You can cancel at any time. So what are you waiting for? Head down to the show notes and click the link to learn more and get signed up today. And let's make 2024 our best year yet. Those are my two like worst enemies in the house, laundry and dishes.
Yeah, probably a lot of your listeners will be like, yes, hallelujah on that one. So I've had a same thing, but I've been doing the same exact thing that I'm sharing with you, just like taking honest inventory. And what I literally just did actually a week ago 2 weeks ago, I started the process of looking into what are some options for hiring help for someone that will do that for me. And I just signed up with, it's a nanny agency, but they also work with house managers. Like this is a new thing. I didn't even know what a house manager was. So I'm in the process of like scouting out and hiring a house manager. And this person for me is going to be in charge of tidying up the house, making our dinner, and managing our laundry. And I'm super excited, but that's after about a year of just constantly taking assessment, what's working, what's not working. And the dinner situation also was a little crazy for us. I would be making dinner, and then my daughter at that time's kind of fussy because she's hungry. And I was just like, okay, this isn't working. But it was like that little chisel away at like, and that's how you build. I know this is like one of the taglines of your podcast, create a business and a life you love. I believe that's exactly how you do it. It's like constant, what's working, what's not working, but from a loving, being in your own corner, being your biggest supporter, and then and being willing to take honest assessment, because then you can get solution focused. That's the other thing I love to talk about is like getting solution focused. Like what might be a solution for the laundry, right? That's what I had to do.
Yeah.
What might be a solution? And then you start to think out of the box, and we're all super smart. If you're a boss and you own, a CEO and you own your own business, like you are a smart woman, right? So when we spend that energy getting solution focused instead of being critical and frustrated, a lot more gets done, and you can create a lot more change in the results you're wanting in all of the areas, like all of the buckets.
Yeah. Well, I love that you mentioned like the house manager thing, because I think that that's one of those, going back to the idea of like the Instagram versus reality. I think we forget that when you see these people posting on Instagram and they've got like their kitchen looks spotless, or, they're having this great time, they have help, whether that is a spouse or significant other that comes in and helps. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that there are a husband and wife team, and while one of them is doing the front end work of the business, the other one is taking care of the house. And I think of like Jasmine Starr, who I absolutely adore. She and her husband run their company together. I love her too. I do too. She's so great. But she talks a lot about how like JD is the one who runs the house. Like he is the one who takes care of their daughter. He cooks all their meals. He does the laundry. She has help. And I think that there's this idea that we as women have to do everything by ourselves in order to, be able to be like, yes, I'm doing it all, and look how great I am. When no, because the only people I know who are trying to do it all and do it by themselves are exhausted. They are worn out. They are irritable. And I'm speaking from experience, because this is me sometimes, like on the days when I try to do it all, I get frustrated with the people in my house, because I'm like, why aren't you helping out more? But then I remind myself like, well, one, I haven't asked them to help out more because I feel like I'm supposed to do it by myself. And two, like, is this really the best use of my time and energy? And like you hiring the house manager, like I've thought about multiple times hiring somebody to come in and do laundry and clean our house for us, because one, it would be giving somebody a job. And two, like those are the things that, I can do it myself, but is it really worth my time and energy? Or could I spend those extra hours each week doing something that either is better for my business and brings in more income, or is best for my family and allows us to spend more time together, which is one of the reasons I started this business in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of asking for help and being open to the idea of outsourcing what you can.
Totally. I read this statistic. This is an actual data. I don't remember the exact number, but it was 700 and something. I feel like I remember it being 760 something. But here's what the number is. That's the average amount of hours most women spend just tidying up the house. That is not even like, we're not talking like making dinner. We're just talking like tidying up, like probably laundry, dishes type stuff.
Mm-hmm. Picking up toys and things off the floor. Yeah.
700. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it was in the 700s per hour. And I thought when I saw that number, that was actually the like last, how do you say that saying? The last drop of
straw
water
that broke the camel's back or whatever.
Yes, exactly that. That was the thing. When I saw that statistic for me, I was like, okay, done. I need to hire someone, because I thought about it and I was like, do you know what like amazing damage I could do in my business as far as like sales or marketing or even creating stuff for my clients? 700 and something hours a year. Like, I do not want to spend that many hours. And that's, of course, a personal thing, right? There might be someone listening who loves making dinner and who loves doing laundry. I don't think I've met anyone personally, but I know it's possible. But this is about each person, right? Taking their own assessment. When I saw that number, I was like, oh no, like I really don't want to spend, like I would even rather spend that time with my daughter than doing those things. Or, and this is the thing, women, we don't give ourselves permission to do this a lot. What if instead of doing that was just 700 hours for me, where I like go get a massage and a this and a that and like go to the mall and walk around by myself or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it tends to be the last thing we think about as an option of what we're going to do with our time, is to just do something for me.
Yeah.
So maybe all of your listeners will just go hire a house manager now.
Well, I think too, like for the moms out there listening to this, I had sort of this revelation lately, and it kind of hit me a while back. And I talked about it at one point in an episode where I talked about mom guilt. But it's been kind of coming back up in conversations that I've had recently with my own mom. So I remember asking my mom, who I look at my mom as she's an incredible mom. Like we are really close. She's one of my closest, dearest friends. I talk to her almost every day. I feel like that she raised me so well, and I have such fond memories of just our life growing up. And I'm like, if I could be half as good as a mom as she was, like, I feel like my kids are going to be super blessed.
Yeah.
But I think back, or I'd asked her at one point, I said, you know, did you ever have mom guilt? Because she was a full-time, I mean, she worked more hours than most people working a 9-to-5 job, because she ran her own business. It was a family business that she managed, or she ran. And I remember she would work like 12-hour days. She'd work half a day on Saturdays. You know, she wasn't able to come to all my field trips, and she wasn't there for all my sporting events, but she was there every time she could be.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, not really. And I was like, you never felt guilty for, she goes, no, because I had to work. I had to, you know, I was providing for you. I was working so I could give you these things. And it was kind of eye-opening to me to think like, oh, like it's okay to not feel guilty. Wait a minute, what's happening here? And then, so this summer I've been having all these, like we've just built a pool recently. And so the kids are outside a lot, and they're always asking me to like get in and swim with them. And there are some days that I just don't feel like it. Like I'm like, I don't want to get in and be splashing around. And I just kind of want to sit at the table and read and watch y'all swim. And I remember thinking that when I was a kid, my mom would get home from work in the summer, and there was this little local community pool about 2 or 3 blocks from our house. And so we'd walk down there, ride our bikes down there, and I would go swim. And I was the only child. So it was just me. And she would sit in a lounge chair for the hour and a half we were there and read while I played and swam. Yeah. And looking back on that, I was like, you know what? She wasn't in the water playing with me.
Yeah.
And there may have been a couple times that she got in and played, but most of the time she would sit and read a book, because that was her time to, you know, kind of get away from the work day and decompress and read. Yeah. And I got to have fun playing. And every once in a while I'd see somebody there that I knew from school or from the neighborhood. and I'd have somebody to play with. And I'm like, and I turned out perfectly fine. So this idea that I have to constantly be my children's activity coordinator.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that.
is like this idea that I'm trying to let go of, because I'm like, you know what? It's okay if I want to sit on the patio and read a book while they play. Yeah. It's okay if I tell them, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not going to get on the floor and pretend to play Barbies with you, because I can't stand that, 1 and 2. Yeah. I don't play Barbies. I don't play pretend well. I'm like, I'll play a game with you, but it needs to have clear defined rules. I don't play like, you know, Barbies and Frozen characters and all that kind of stuff very well. That's what you have a sister for. But, you know, just that idea of like, it's okay to say, I need to do something for me. Yeah. And I'll be here with you, but we don't have to be doing the same thing, I think has been just in the past couple of weeks, something that has been like a really eye-opening way for me to take care of myself and not feel like I'm always at the bottom of the list. Yeah. And still be able to spend time with my kids, but not necessarily have to be spending time like doing the same things they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if there's a really popular book right now, Untamed, by Glennon Doyle. Have you read it?
I have not yet, no, but I have it. I just haven't read it yet.
Yeah. Well, everything you just shared reminded me of, I hope I can like share this in a way that makes sense, but there's this little part where she talks about the generational changes of sort of the role or responsibility of parenthood. And she says it really funny, but essentially she's like, oh, back in the day when you left the hospital with your kid, the note that you got with your kid was just like, here's your kid, keep it alive. And then like a generation later is like, here's your kid, you know, make sure you feed it, make sure it doesn't watch too much TV, keep it alive, something like that. And then like our generation, like she went on and it was like, make sure that your kid does this and has this and is never bored and blah, 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 like on and on and on and on. And just how the expectations have really shifted. And of course, I think that some of it's great. Some of the change is great, but I love how you shared what you shared, because I never think that anything is useful to do when it feels like we're obligated. And when it feels like you are at your own expense. I'm, you know, like we love our kids, of course, like my daughter, I love her. I want to offer her all of the best, but I mean, when I'm just being really honest with myself, when I'm totally burned out, I can't even really be the mom that I want to be. So it's important for me to give myself permission to take care of me.
Yeah.
And then I can take care of her even better. So, I mean, the way you described it was just such a great example of that. And plus, like, that's a great skill too for when kids need to learn how to entertain themselves.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and I grew up as an only child, so there was no siblings for me to entertain myself with. I remember there were so many Saturdays that my parents would be doing yard work or cleaning the house or doing whatever. And I would just be out in the backyard by myself, like having to find ways to entertain myself. And I think I turned out okay.
Yeah, we agree.
Well, thank you. And I think about my kids a lot of times as far as when they're adults. I'm like, okay, if I'm looking back on my childhood and if I'd had a mom that constantly was at my beck and call and was doing every activity with me and I never was on my own to do anything, like how would that have changed who I am? I'm like, I don't want my kids to, I don't want them to feel like that I am their servant. I'm not put on this earth to make their life glamorous and easier necessarily. I'm here to guide them and teach them how to be good humans.
Yeah.
And an example is we had some friends over back before quarantine happened. I think it was even actually like around New Year's. We always have a New Year's party at our house with our close friends. And my youngest one is about the same age as our friends, their kids. And my youngest one like came over and she was like, can I have a drink? I was like, yeah, you know where the drinks are. And we use like those little like Crystal Light squeeze juices, to put in water. And I was like, you can fix a drink. And she goes over and she gets her cup out of the cabinet and she gets ice and water out of the ice maker on the fridge. And she goes and she knows where the little squeezes juice are and she squeezes in. And I remember my friend looking at us and he was like, she's 4 or she was
Yeah.
3 at the time, almost 4. And he's like, she makes her own drink. And I was like, yeah.
Like super independent.
Yeah, she's super independent. And I've always said like that while other people look at that as I'm teaching my kids to be independent, I've always been like, well, no, I'm just kind of a lazy mom. Like I don't want to have to get her juice every time because it never fails. She asks me for juice the second I sit down on the couch or I sit at the table or whatever. I'm like, no, you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've had a few messes and a few spills, but my version of like lazy parenting, I think, is making my kids more independent. And I look at it the same way with the time I spend with them. You know, I mean, when I come in the office and I close the door and record these interviews, or when I am in here working, or I'm in my studio creating, it's not necessarily time that I'm away from them. It's time that I'm showing them that as a woman and as a mom, this is how it should look. Like,
yeah,
you know, I want to be an example for them of someone who's able to do all the things, but in a really harmonious way. I'm trying not to use the word balance.
Yeah.
But in a way that like, I want them to look back on their childhood and think, oh, my mom showed us that it's possible to do these things, but do it in a way where you don't lose yourself and you don't give everything you have to your kids, because then you have nothing left for yourself and for anybody else and anything else in your life. But she still was there for us and she loved us and cared about us.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm rambling now. I'm sorry.
What an amazing thing to role model for your kids. I absolutely want to show my daughter the same thing as well.
Well, it comes in handy that I tend to project way out into the future. Like this is a blessing and a curse. Is like, I'm one of those people who is always looking ahead into like, well, what's this going to look like in her life as an adult? Or what is this going to do for her when she's older? Or how am I going to handle these situations in the future? And my husband is more let's just live in the here and the now.
Yeah.
But in some ways it benefits me to always be thinking ahead, because I'm always like, well, how is what I'm doing now going to affect them in the long run?
Yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
Well, that's a great combination. Sounds like it's really working. But yeah, that's such an important thing to role model, because I know, like, for example, my mom's generation, it was, and the way at least that my mom, the way that she really thought about motherhood is like, you sacrifice everything. Even if it means you're like miserable. And I love my mom so much. There's 5 of us.
Oh my gosh.
Which I'm like, how does someone do that? Because I have one too. So, but it's like such a different, I think we've redefined and still are redefining, like, what does this look like? Yeah. And that's what I'm really, really huge on, even like the work that I do with my clients as far as their own personal goals and what their relationship is with their body and with their food. The way that I love to think of it is like, because I know you were kind of thinking about the word balance or harmony. I love to just think of it as self-defined. Like when my clients come to work with me, I'm like, it is self-defined, like what you want your goal to be, what you want your results to be. It is self-defined, like what you want this part of your life, your relationship to food, with food, and your results to look like or to be like. You know, some people are more like, I've had clients be like, yeah, you know, I want to like keep a little bit more curvy and meat on my body or whatever. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like you get to define that. You are the boss of that. And some clients come in and are like, I want to be a little bit more lean and like tightened up. And my role is to be a coach and a guide for them to really facilitate that they create exactly what they want, because that's self-defined. And I believe the same thing about business. Like, someone might love a business that is generating a revenue of like 200K a year and working 30-ish hours a week. And that might be like the epitome of, this is just a dream come true. Right? But someone else might be like, I want a 7-figure business and I want to work 3 days a week. And like, I think all of that is self-defined, or a billionaire, or maybe someone wants to like have they still have a job that they're going to, and they want to do their business part-time and generate 50K additional revenue. And like, that's their dream, and that is self-defined. So I think like that's what you're showing your daughters, like your life, you're creating it the way you want it, and your business. And I love that that's what we are doing as women now. It's like really everything is so self-defined, and we're just getting out there and creating it.
Yeah.
In every part of our life. So,
well, it makes me think like that idea you mentioned about the Untamed book, where she talks about the different, like, sort of the guides they would, if the hospital were sending home a guide for children, like how it's changed. And one of the things that I've always said that I love about entrepreneurship and being your own boss is that there is no rule book, really. I mean, we like to think that there is. And for people who like to have sort of this mapped out plan, they look for someone to give them a rule book. But the reality is you get to create your own rule book. I love that term you use, self-defined. I wrote that down because I think that's such a great way to explain it, is that it's all on you, which can be really freeing, but can also be really scary. Because when it's all on you, you're like, oh, but who's the adult that I look to for help? But I think that that's the beauty of it, is that you get to decide, like you said, how many hours do you want to work? And how do you want your day to be structured? And how do you want your time with your family to be structured? And how do you want the time that you're working to look? And what is it you want to accomplish? And that's all you. Like, it's not a matter of somebody else saying, okay, you need to work 40 hours on your business in order for it to be successful. Well, that's not true. That's not
exactly.
Reality, And you can work 40 hours if you want to, but I didn't leave a full-time job to come to my house and work 40 hours in my home office while my kids play in the other room. That's not what I did.
Right.
And so I love that we get to create our own rule book. That's one of my favorite things about this. And it can be difficult because, kind of going back to what we started the conversation with, is that idea of when you start looking at your to-do list and you're putting yourself at the bottom every time, you need to rearrange that and make sure you're pushing yourself higher and higher up. But when that all falls on you, it can feel a little heavy sometimes. And so just knowing that when I'm creating my list of priorities, the fact that that I get to decide what goes at the top, and I get to decide what goes second and third and fourth and all of those things, is something that I tend to forget, because I start looking at, well, what does everyone else do? And what does everyone else think I should do? And what does everyone else think I should put first? When really it's all on me and I get to make that decision.
Totally. I love thinking about it that way. And then I actually, as you were saying all that, I remember when we started our conversation, you were saying like it sounds like a nice thing to do to kind of like balance it all out, but that it's challenging. And one thing that I want to offer for all of your listeners, I think one of the key things, and it's one of the main things that helped me to not only like really be done struggling with all the weight stuff, but like leave my job, build my successful coaching practice that I've built. One of the main things is emotional self-care. I mean, you mentioned, right? There's like, I'm going to get a massage later. I love all the pampery stuff. So anything spa, massage related, love that. But I don't think that's the stuff that is the game changer. Here's how I like to teach this is the emotional self-care. And this is such an important time to have these conversations about emotional self-care, because, we've had like some just to kind of simplify it, world crisis with like the pandemic. And then just recently with like other events and like conversations about like race and racism sparking up. And these are like things that people of all, no matter where you come from, it just like there's a lot of thoughts and feelings
Yes.
that get brought up to the surface and that we are experiencing. So taking a moment to even just assess like, how am I feeling? And like allowing a space to feel that. And here's the, like, of course I hear this all the time, like, but I don't have time to do that. I have like all these kids and I'm running my business. And here's how I like to challenge people. We all have time to brush our teeth every day. Most people, twice a day. And it takes like a couple of minutes in the morning, a couple of minutes at night. And we're not like, oh, I don't have time to brush my teeth. We just literally make time for it. Mm-hmm. Our oral hygiene. And so I like to think of it as emotional hygiene, and that it's just as important, if not more, actually way more, in my opinion, to take a moment, literally a minute or two each day. And you could even think of this as like a feeling download. It sounds kind of woo.
I love that.
Bit. Yeah. But where you just like check in, you know what? Let's not even call it a download, just a check in. Like, how am I feeling today? Am I feeling overwhelmed, stressed, burned out? And like, give yourself a moment to literally just acknowledge that you're feeling that way. It's very simple, but it's life-changing. Yeah. So just give yourself a moment. I shared a story recently on my podcast about before I even became a life coach. Actually, this was right after I got out of high school, I believe. Maybe I wasn't even 18 yet. One of the jobs that I had was I was an assistant in a kindergarten class.
Oh my.
And I'll always remember this memory of there was this little boy. He typically was like really, playful, would follow the rules. If it was circle time, he would go to circle and just pretty easygoing. Like he wasn't the kid whose parents like got called in for, teachers with the meeting or whatever, or meetings with the teacher. But on this one particular day, he was like having a bit of a rough time. Like he was kind of frustrated. He was kind of like getting impatient and you could just tell. And I was so amazed because at his emotional maturity, he walked up to the teacher and asked her, can I please go to timeout because I'm feeling a lot of things. Like I'm having a lot of feelings. That's what he said.
Oh.
And of course the teacher said, yeah, okay. Like you can go to timeout, come back when you're ready. Like seriously, that just stayed with me. And I think that's so important for women. Like when there's all these things like happening in the world and you have all these responsibilities, you're running your business, you have your kids or your relationship and whatever else you're doing in the world. So important to just take a moment and check in. And hey, if you are feeling a lot of things, like send yourself to your own version of a timeout, whether it's
I love that.
Yeah. Like, you know what it is? Sometimes for me, it's like a hot shower. Mm-hmm. I got this tip from my sister, actually. She's like, if you ever need a cry, like you just want to cry, go take a hot shower and cry in the shower. A lot of the stress eating and emotional eating that happens because we're just not processing all the emotions that are going on for us. And so like, if at the end of a day, you're like, I'm so burnt out, like the kids were crazy today. I'm not hitting my revenue goals this month. And you're just feeling frustrated or scared or impatient or whatever it is, or angry or disappointed. Give yourself a moment. Just like, I love that story of that little boy. Like give yourself a moment to just process whatever you're feeling. And that's what I like to call emotional self-care.
I think that's amazing. I love that. I wrote down emotional timeout, feelings timeout, because I think that's so good. I love that story. And I had this moment the other day where my husband came home from work and, when we've been at home now for going on almost 3.5 months, something like that. And with my 2 kids at home, and there's so many days that like I don't see or talk to another adult until my husband gets home. And I don't realize sometimes how much that affects me.
Yeah.
And just the other day he got home and I was in my brain, I remember thinking like, okay, what excuse can I make to just like go run an errand somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I need to go run to Home Depot because we need blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, I was going to make a trip to Home Depot this weekend. I was like, no, I need it right now. And he's like, no, you really don't. And I was like, I just need to be alone in my car. He's like, that's all you had to say. He's like, you don't have to make up an excuse. Just go get in your car and drive. And just even that little reminder from him that like, it's okay to say, I just need a few minutes. And for me, that timeout is I love to get in my car and I have like a playlist on my phone of like kind of like feel good, fun, sing along songs. And I crank it up and I just drive. And I really have like no destination necessarily. I mean, sometimes I'll like run to Sonic and get a drink or something. But for the most part, I just need that time to sort of process my feelings from the day, get out of my own head a little bit. And that's my version of like my time out for myself. And I forget that it's okay to ask for that or to say, I need this time, because I think we all feel like we shouldn't need that, but we do.
Oh my gosh, it's so important. So we could call it emotional self-care, emotional hygiene, giving yourself a moment, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, if anyone needs that, I think it's women that have so many roles and responsibilities, but really it's all humans. Yeah. Right. That little boy is such a great example of that.
Whoever taught him that is, I need to teach my kids that, because my oldest one will, she'll just go in her room now and she'll be like, I just need to be by myself for a little while. I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's okay to need to be by yourself for a little while. There's nothing wrong with that, you know? And I think we forget that as much as we need it, sometimes our kids need it too.
Yeah.
Well,
it's super important.
Thank you so much. I know we kind of like rambled along a little bumpy road of different topics and things, and then we kind of twisted and winded around, but I appreciate you kind of going with the flow and having this conversation. So tell everybody where they can find you. I know you said you have your podcast. They can work with you one-on-one. So give us a little information of how everybody can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So if you love listening to podcasts, who doesn't? Podcasts are the best. I do have a podcast wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can search. My podcast is called The Last 10 Pounds Podcast. And really it's beyond the weight loss. Yes, I help give you the information to create the results you want, but it's about being done with the whole struggle of it, the emotional, the mental struggle, because that's the exhausting piece of it. Yeah. So that's where you can find me, The Last 10 Pounds Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And then you can check me out at my website as well, brendalamelli.com. You can see the information there about my program, about working with me. And I also do love being on Instagram, which is @_Brenda Lamelli. So
awesome. And I'll have all of that linked in the show notes so they can just easily scroll down and find you there. So thank you, Brenda, so much. I know we've already taken up a lot of your time today, and I know you've got a massage to get to. So enjoy that.
But it's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here and chat with you. And thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, hopefully we'll have you on again. I'm sure there's a lot more we can talk about. So we'll talk to you again soon. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Huge thank you to Brenda for taking the time to chat with us, to really dive into some deep conversations about motherhood and mental health and just taking care of ourselves. Make sure that you go follow her on social media, check out her podcast, and then don't forget to head over to Instagram, head over to Girl Means Business Instagram page, check out the Instagram Stories Challenge that is going on currently if you're listening to this live, and make sure you join in for some really amazing prizes. All right, guys, have a wonderful week. I will see you back here next week, same time, same place.